Hi, everyone. My name's Michael Gonzalez. Thank you for having me at TK Forum 2023. I'm here from the University of Technology, Sydney, and a big thank you for having me today to talk about the Creative in Residence program that we have here at the University Library. The program is not new. It has been running for approximately around 10 years now in various different forms. And today I'll take you through a bit of the history. I'll show you some examples, and then I will talk about the things you can do and the things we do to have the program run. Next. So the program, so UTS as a campus is very different. We are a series of buildings in the middle of Sydney, so we don't have grounds and parks. We are just a bunch of buildings. There's approximately 45,000 students within all of our campuses, our buildings. And about 10 years ago, the library was on the outside of the campus. So the main sort of part of campus was about a 10-minute walk from where the library was. The library wasn't necessarily engaged with the university all that much. And there was a very conscious effort to try and make people come back into the library and sort of engage with library concept, the library services, and just the library itself. Part of the origin of the Artist in Residence program back then was to ask the question, what if design was part of the fabric of the library? What if everything the library did had an element of design or design thinking or some form of client and design interaction? What if the questions the library was trying to answer were right in front and they could be solved just by thinking in a different way, solving its own problems in a different way? So the program was a way of sort of getting library staff to think, the university to think, and the broader community to think of the library in a much different way than what had been traditionally thought of. Libraries are traditionally large boxes, and this image is a very good example of what the library was and what it became. So boxes that generally hide knowledge, people, and culture. Our original Artist in Residence program sought to unpack this and sort of make the library more an engaging place and a more open place for people to come and enjoy. Over time, the Artist in Residence program has seen different things like installations, public events, furniture, digital works, and exhibitions, all produced in celebration of everything that is the library. The program was successful in engaging staff and the community to see the library as something different, to see it unpacked and to see it as a hub of things that spread across the university. So the program sought to actually not only just be in the library, but bits of it have been through the university, and we'll start seeing examples of that a bit later on. Much like the cube that you can see open in front of you, the library has now been open and it became change ready. And in 2018, in preparation for us to move to our new building, we looked at the Artist in Residence program and evolved it. The program as we know it today offers creatives the opportunity to inspire playfulness, provoke curiosity, and encourage engagement with the UTS library. We provide the resident a unique opportunity to develop and produce a project that uses the UTS library as a starting point for research and realization. We've gone from an artifact, which is an artwork of creativity, to a program of events and engagement. And you'll see how that's very much interesting in the way, some of the work that we're doing today. The outcomes, we now live in this building. So in 2019, we moved to our new building, that is UTS Central. The majority of that building is the library, and the elements of our Creative in Residence programs from its start are actually all the way through this building. All of the design and all of the concepts that we explored were used in making this building look and feel like the library and the creative hub of the university. The mindset of our staff is that we are at the center of the campus, and the mindset of the university is that the library is the center of campus, and that the library is at the core of the UTS experience and at the core of the UTS identity around creativity. And as much as we are this giant building in the center of campus, we are still everywhere. So everything you sort of see here spreads around campus, around all of our buildings, and that sort of spirit of the library now runs through the university, and a lot of it is because of our Creative and Artist in Residence programs. This is just a little bit of an example, and now I'll run through. This is what we call the Planty Atlas. So we had a couple of creatives come through and create a map which went from the old library to the new library, which is all the greenery that is in the middle of the city. So they discovered all the pockets of plants and gardens and things, and then created a map. But I'll go through some other ones that are quite things. So our first artist in residence program was actually in 2012, and that was Chris Gall, and he developed the library spectrogram. So the library spectrogram, as you can see it, he got our Dewey Decimal numbers, and he created an artwork that showed the distribution of our books in relation to the colors on the spectrogram. He then got that and moved and created that for other libraries. So you can sort of see how different the libraries were. And it was originally designed as a way of navigating the library. So if I was in the orange, for example, I knew I was in the social sciences. Over time, we've used that on several occasions. We had a library search box that you could navigate using the colors. We also use that in some of our flooring for our new buildings to sort of make it really clear where you were. In moving to the new building, we evolved that. And what you can see on the left, you have an image of students. All the colors in this new building actually come from the spectrogram. So all of the floors have a different coloring. All of the coloring are parts of the colors, and they're all in the proportion of the spectrogram. Our library website still uses those original colors, so to denote the parts of the collection that you have and also how you navigate. And all of our print publications still use the spectrogram. So 10 years on, the original concept that Chris pulled together, we still use as part of what we do in our service delivery. In 2016, we had Adam Goodrum, and he designed a chair. And although that seems quite insignificant, he designed a chair for the future library. So what would be the ideal chair? And this one was around looking at what he remembered to be a calm environment growing up, and it was where the two rivers met. And this is a good example of a artist in residence who liked the idea of working with the library so much that he created a second work. So that was considered called the Malloy chair, which was the first chair he designed. He later on went to design what we call the reading room chair. And on the left, you can see an example of the reading room chair. It's a specifically designed chair that was only exists in this building. You cannot purchase it. And it was designed specifically for the UTS reading room, which you can see on the right with all the students sitting there. 350 chairs are the only that exist in the world. And Adam Goodrum is a very well-known furniture designer. So we feel very fortunate that we have these chairs in our library. They were also used to engage with alumni. So as part of our campaign, when we opened the library, we asked alumni to sponsor chairs and sort of build that identity between the library and the external community. The other thing is that reading room is available to the external community. So we do invite external community members from around Sydney to come in, and they can use the reading room anytime they want to, and they can experience sitting in Adam's chair. Adam's chair is designed around the concept of a book. So if you look at the back of the chair, it's got two strokes like the back of a book, and the lines on the chair are like the open book, like the pages as they're folded open. So he actually sat there looking at a book and designed a chair around that concept. Our next work is Safe Support by Natalia Hughes. This work sought to look at how we could make an inclusive space. Originally, the space underneath the stairs there was very dark and had no furniture. And what Natalia did was she thought, what could I do to make this more inclusive? So what she did was created an art installation that someone could sit in. So all of the items on the wall were hand painted, and all of the fabrics were designed by Natalia. The way she did this was by painting all the items and then using a program that would actually create wallpaper and overlaying that. She also put in a chandelier and painted it gold, which is very interesting. It was quite a big feature on campus. Everyone came to see it. But also it was about making things safe. And as a university, we had very much a campaign around student safety and what it meant to be inclusive and respectful. And part of this installation was part of that program, which was later recognized at a national level here as an example of bringing that program to life. Natalia also went on to do a little bit of other work. So I'll just bring up my next slide. And you can see there on the left, she created some cushions. The cushions themselves were designed on one side to be yes cushions and one side to be no. So do you want a friend to sit with you? Yes. Do you want a friend to sit with you? No. And they used emojis. So the emojis that traditionally you'd associate with positivity were overlaid onto each other, and emojis that you'd associate with negativity, like spiders, were on the other cushion. So these are spread through the library and the building here at UTS. And on the right-hand side, you can see that the beanbags are now the beanbags we used in our buildings, and students use them all the time to sleep on. So what she did, and the items on the beanbag are actually good things that make you sleepy. So you can see salmon and chamomile and tea and books. So they're the things to invite students to come and sleep on the beanbags. Our next creative, and this is the point where we move to more of an engagement aspect with our program, our Creative in Residence program, is Shireen Fard, and her project was called Whispers in the Library. This one was an interesting one because it was developed and delivered in 2020 during COVID. So during this time, Shireen herself lost a lot of work because as a creative, all of the work got cancelled, but we continued the program with her. And what she did is over 6 weeks, she came into the library and she wrote notes and put them into books. And they were actually all of her views on love, fear, and life. And that time of despair where she was detached from everyone, she couldn't see her family. So she came in there and she worked. A lot of the time she worked in a giant room all by herself. And what we did is we created a little space in there, like a little room, so you can see the black box. And Shireen would write and actually put all of the notes in books and invited those who visited to put notes in books. Everything had to be social distance. So this is our way of sort of saying that is the space that Shireen occupied and you couldn't go into it at the time. Shireen's notes are all through the library. And you can see she used photos and notes, and they're in the books. There are thousands of them all through our collection. And I just put pictures of our collection because we do have 2 types of collections. So we have our normal bookshelves that you can see in every other library. We also have an underground warehouse that is the length of our giant building. And she made sure that there were notes all the way through them. People always come up and say, what's this photo about? And on the back, she put her thoughts around that time that she was. So we're hoping that for many years to come, people will continue to find some of Shireen's artifacts that she left behind. In the future, this work is actually at the moment going to go onto Google Arts and Culture. So you'll be able to see all of the notes that Shireen put into the book. And she's also produced a book with all of the notes and photos and how she laid them into the books. So that's a very interesting one that we had. So now, because I've done a few examples, I thought I'd run through how you could put together a program like this and what that involves. Every year, so this was last year's application, and it says, come play with us. We have a different theme. So last year's theme was around playfulness, and that was how we ended up with our current artist in residence, or creative in residence for next year, Rachel. But I'll talk about some of the previous ones and what the general program involves. So our first stage is our application. So every year we have a different theme and we have a different, we say, vibe to the application process. So it could actually be quite a serious one. It could be quite a playful one, or it could be a little bit of fun. So last year we wanted to go for playful. Some of them have engagement. The one we ran this year, which I'll show you a preview of at the end of the slides, that was around engagement and how you'd engage with people. The program itself is quite simple. We give artists or creatives $10,000 for them to, as a payment for their work. We have a $5,000 budget that we give in terms of resources and the things that we can put together. And it also uses existing staff here in the library to facilitate. They get a dedicated workspace in the library. So some of our creatives have chosen for that workspace to be with library staff, and others have chosen it to be in the public area. Timo, who was one of our creatives in the past, he chose to sit in the middle of a stairwell and talk to everyone who walked past. And that was his workspace, which is Reside. Whereby, and this year's Katie actually chose to do a mix of both, some back of house, some front of house. There is a curatorial program management. So we do have a staff member who's dedicated to make sure that they facilitate and help the artists. So it is based enabling the work and talking to them about what they can do. Things like OH&S clearances, organizing painters, getting the printing done. That's provided to the artist to be able to progress with the work. And we have some technical support, which we didn't think we'd need, but we always need technical support of some kind. Every one of our artists have wanted a digital element at some point. We then have a shortlisting process. So once we receive our application, so that's the information that goes out. Last year, we received approximately 30 applications from different people. They don't have to be part of UTS. So we've got people from the general public. We have quite well-known artists. We even had galleries put forward ideas for what they would like to. We then convene a little committee of about 8 or 9 people, depending on interest, and that involves library representatives who look at the applications. We have professional curators from our own university, as well as other art galleries around. We have other university libraries involved. We also get academic and researchers in creative fields, and a couple of times we've had members of the local council. So when we wanted to do something that engaged with the public, we've invited someone from our local council to come in to sort of help us shortlist the applications. But the criteria we use is relatively simple. Our project has to respond to the continuing development and the dynamic of the library. So it must build on what's already there. So that's what we try and get them to do. The project is visible to and engages with library clients and staff. That's a very big criteria that we look at, which is how is this going to be a project that people can participate in or actually contribute to or interact with. The project creatively engages with our collections, community services, and spaces. So we try and make sure that all of the projects bring in the books, the collection, maybe our services. So it has to be relevant to the library. The project is feasible within the timeline. So all of our creatives get about 6 months of a timeline, and they have to tell us how they intend to do it in 6 months and stay on budget, which is not always easy. And we also look at the quality of the portfolio. So the submission itself is really a one-page document outlining how they meet these criteria. And then they have to submit a portfolio of work that we look at to say, is this sort of in keeping with what we're doing? The biggest challenge around the submission of the portfolio is that sometimes we get creatives or artists that want to produce work that is very similar in style as what we've done. So we just want to make sure that each one of them is distinctive in a different way. So that's what we look at when we look at portfolios. And the last one is that the application aligns with our current mission. And our current mission in the library is to create excellent client experiences. So, you know, we really look for the experience element this year when we went out for a call. And then once we do the shortlisting and we do the judging, we notify the successful applicant. There has been instances where the panel has not been able to decide. So we've brought in the last 2 applicants, and in that case, they'll take a tour with myself as a university librarian through the building, and then we'd have a chat about what they want to do, and then I would make the final decision. But and in other times, there's been instances where the panel has agreed that there was one clear artist or one clear creative. So you know, so that's always a very interesting thing where you have to have 2 and make a decision. The last bit I want to talk about is some of the lessons that we have learned. So we've been doing this for about 10 years now. So I thought this might be interesting for people to hear. The first one is the library can be overwhelming. Most of the people come in and they have a very definite idea of what they want to do. And then they come in and we say, you can have the whole library and do whatever you want to. And that actually is quite overwhelming. A lot of the feedback we've received from our different creatives and artists has been, it would have been good if you just gave me one thing to look at. But we also don't like to do that. So, you know, it's up to them to decide what they want to narrow in on. But we've over the time learned to facilitate that process. The second thing is that creatives are not there to solve our problems, but they will find them. So giving them a list of problems has in the past made it difficult. Rather than have them experience the library, they generally tend to find a problem that they want to try and solve creatively, and they work quite well in that way. The third one is prepare to be challenged. Not everything is linear. Every project, I can hand on heart say, starts out with a brief and an idea, and it has ended up being completely different to the original brief that we had gotten. Because as they start playing with things in the library, as they start talking to staff, as they start talking to our clients, the projects evolve. So it's very interesting that, and sometimes quite challenging. Scope and scale will creep. One of the things that is a challenge is the budget and the timeline. And sometimes we've had to say to some of our creatives, what if you had all the budget and all the time in the world? And a lot of the time that has led to the projects growing bigger because they've become great ideas. Natalia's, the one with the sleeping bags under the stairs, is an interesting example of this because her original project was just to do the wallpaper. But when she showed us that she wanted to do the carpet and the wallpaper and the chandelier and the gold, we sought to get extra funding because it was a good idea. So that's one of those things. And, you know, in most environments, if the idea is good enough, it can be sold and someone's willing to pay for it. The next one I'd say is don't meddle. The best work is done when you allow the space for it to happen. So a lot of the times in all of our most successful creatives have been because we've just let them take their time, enjoy the process. And it's very different for them. For when they deal with galleries, they deal with very definite timelines and timeframes and budgets and outputs. And for us to say, well, think about it and then come back. And yes, that's great. And that sort of environment works quite well to give them the freedom to do what they want to. And I can say the ones where they've delivered more value than what had originally been said were these projects where we've said, you can keep playing with the idea and they keep delivering different elements. The next one is to make your expectations clear. And in our context, we ask for one collection item and one event at least. So that's our minimum. So something that will stay with the library and something that will engage with our clients. But you have to be very clear about that. In the past, when we haven't been, we've found that people do one or the other or neither, or you just need to be really clear about what the outcome needs to be. Consult during and into the future. So one of the things is that all of these things that we've done, because of the way that we've arranged our contracts, we retain a lot of the copyright for and we're able to reproduce, but we never are disrespectful of this process. So, for example, when we reuse the wallpaper, which we did in this building, we actually contacted Natalia and said, are you comfortable with us doing this? Is this in the spirit of what you wanted us to do? And in that way, it also means that the artists and creatives will advocate for you. Our applications don't come because of our advertising. Our applications come through word of mouth. So a lot of the artists and creatives that worked with us before go back and they tell their friends and they tell their colleagues, you must do this program with UTS Library. And we get quite a few high-profile names through that. It's a big preview of our next one. So that's The Book Witch by Katie B. Plummer. Katie, when she walked into our buildings, noticed that it was a new building and it was very cold. And her intention was to give the library a ghost. So we now have a book witch. And this week was our orientation week, where we've had hundreds of students interact with the ghost. I won't tell you what the ghost is. And if you come to UTS Library, you will visit the ghost. It exists through our library. And it will exist online soon as well. So that's still all playing out at the moment. And there is a large exhibition where you can come and have dinner with the ghost. Or the book witch, as we call her. So that's sort of an overview of all of our programs around our sort of creative in residence program. I have to say that overall, it's not an intensive program, but it does require staff who are enthusiastic and believe in the program to drive and work on it. I have to say we have a user experience team who every year work really hard with the artist and with the library and the university to make all of everyone's dreams come true. And particularly, I think this year with Katie's example, I'll say thank you to Mia Turner, who is our curator here on staff, who has worked very diligently to make the Book Witch come to life. And thank you.